Welcome to Deep Deck. Gonna have a creative conversation. Hello, welcome to Tape Deck, a podcast where I, artist writer Declan Shelby, have a creative conversation, namely with a past or present collaborator in comics. My collabros this episode are Charles Soule and Will Sliney. Charles Soule is a New York-based #1 New York Times best-selling novelist, comic book writer, musician, and former attorney. He's worked on books like Daredevil, She-Hulk, Death of Wolverine, various Star Wars comics, and I'm going to stop now because it just goes on forever and ever. Will Sliney is an Irish comic book artist who's worked with Marvel, DC, Star Wars, etc., etc. We worked on books like Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Verse, Rise of Kylo Ren, and is the creator and presenter of Will Sliney's Storytellers and Draw with Will. Both are working together on a new book called The Cold Witch as part of their Shrouded College series. So I'm going to ask them about that. So, guys, welcome to Tape Deck.
I have my guitar. I just heard that awesome riff at the start. Is this? Are we just having a jam?
Yeah, well, I think
quick.
I think air guitar is better because I can't.
Yeah,
Plug it in.
I'm good to
Let's
go.
do it.
Let's do it. Okay, boom, boom.
I can only do air guitar. Yeah. I'm going to change a creative conversation and jam to the intro. But thanks for coming along, guys.
Thanks for having us.
I want to talk. I'll just get into it with Charles first, and Will after that, because Charles and I actually did work together years ago on Return to Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
Will and I haven't worked together, but our careers are very much intertwined. Like we both
will never work together.
No, that's at this stage it's just never going to happen. But we do have a really weird shared past that, we worked within the same companies within the same years, and I don't know if we want to get into that too much, but I actually don't know how you broke in, Charles. Like you were working like as a lawyer, weren't you?
Yeah, I went to law school, which is the easiest way to break into comics. I don't know. I started being an attorney back in the early 2000s, and I realized almost immediately that it just all felt wrong, right? It wasn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a person with a creative life, whether that was, playing guitar, which I was doing a ton of back then, or writing. And I chose writing because it seemed like something that I could do while I was still working as an attorney. I could do writing on the side. It was much more difficult to ditch the law firm at 5 and tell all the other attorneys, oh, I'm actually not going to work an 80-hour week this week while you guys do. I'm going to go play, a gig with my band instead. And so, but writing, I could do, even if I got home at 1 a.m, I could write, something. I could write a paragraph or whatever. So for years I did that. I worked on my first novel, and it didn't go anywhere, as a lot of people's first novels do, but it taught me how to write longer form stories and how to do the job of storytelling in a way that I hadn't really been able to take seriously before. And I started working on my second novel, but at the same time, I'm like, man, it takes what's the cursing policy on this show, Declan? Is Declan gone? Are we gone?
I think this is the Will and Charles show.
Oh, wow.
Okay, well, welcome to Will Deck, our Deck. Will Tape. Tape Will. I believe you can curse. This is YouTube, so.
Oh, fantastic. All right, well, I don't even know if anyone's listening to us anymore, but Will, it's great to see you. So what I was going to say, there's a story you've heard before, but it's fucking hard to write a novel. It takes forever. And there's no guarantee that when you're finished with the years and years of work that anybody's going to buy it or pick it up or anything like that. And so I started looking for a way to do it that was less time intensive, in a way that you could know sooner if the project was going to succeed or be published or whatever. So, and I'd always loved comics since I was really young. And so I started looking into the way comics were being published and created at that time, which again is like the early 2000s. And I realized what is still the case today, which is that comics is this very sort of egalitarian medium where if you are good, you can kind of get yourself noticed. If you have skill and talent and moxie, right? If you have energy and you get out there and you put yourself in front of people and you can kind of make things happen for yourself in a way that's incredibly difficult. Like you can't really do that with a movie unless you have $20 million lying around, or a very unique skill set and set of connections. But with comics, you kind of can do it. Like if you've got, I don't know, if you can scrape up a few $1,000s, you can make a pretty reputable comic. So, or at least a sample, like a short one. So I started doing that and making short comics and figuring it out, because comics is like a labyrinth, especially in those early days. All the indie publishers, all the indie companies are the people that you have to connect with, because you can't just walk into Marvel or DC and get a job. There are some people who can. Artists can kind of do that if they're really, really good. But for writers, it's really about going through the indie comics route. So I started doing that. Got a book published with a company called SLG. Called Strongman back in 2009. Moved from there to a book at Image called 27. Hey, there's Declan.
Hey.
Sorry, I haven't had more than 2 people on this, so I'm figuring out as I go along.
Did all that go out? What I
no, it's all live. I managed to block myself out for a minute. But
it was way better like that. Interesting around that time, Charles. Mm-hmm. So yourself, myself, and Dec. Yep. All trying to break into comics, all around a similar level, would all end up in similar places. And we all got to know each other back then, around 2009, kind of hanging around the same people, going around to the same places after New York Comic Con, like the Lansdowne Bar and places like that, which is crazy. Like we, in such a worldwide industry, that we can kind of start breaking the way in through the same direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I first met Charles, I think you were doing a gig somewhere in New York. Was it Brooklyn maybe? It was a launch party for one of your creator. Was it Letter 44 maybe? It was one of your earlier books.
Probably. I'm glad that makes sense. I mean, I did launch parties. I do launch parties for a lot of stuff. I've got one next weekend at C2E2. I'm doing a big launch party for the Lucky Devils, and my band's going to play a record there. So I don't know. It seems like a way to merge the two audiences that I've always kind of liked doing. But anyway, so you guys know we all did it at the same time, right? Like back in those sort of late aughts time, there was still a very, like the social media wasn't really around the same way. There were message boards. Like that's how I came up. A lot of it was the Bendis board, which was Brian Michael Bendis's board, where they gave a lot of creators their start. Like Jonathan Hickman came out of there, Nick Spencer came out of there, tons of people came out of there. You guys did too, right? I believe. Weren't you on the Bendis board?
We were Mark Miller's. Actually.
Yeah, we were Miller World. Yeah. Two of us.
All right, but same kind of deal, right? Like and Frankie Vaughan had one, and there were just a few that became these real hubs for aspiring creators at that moment in time. It was right at the end of, so the internet was around, but it was before webcomics were huge, I think, and certainly before social media was like a big deal. So we were all we had like MySpaces and Friendsters and things, I guess. Yeah. So back then, you would make your little indie comic, and you would go to the tiny comic convention. Like in New York, the one where I would go is MoCA, which still runs today. It was very much for indie creators who don't have a foothold at Marvel or DC or any Image, whatever. And eventually, you make connections, you meet other creators, which was a big important thing for me. And you start getting a reputation as someone who can do good work. And eventually, if that's your goal, it's not the goal for everybody. For me, it really was about trying to get into Marvel or DC, because that's where that's really where the money is in the early stages of your comic career. And eventually DC came knocking and had me write Swamp Thing. And then at the same time, because if you want a job at Marvel, the way to do that is to get a job at DC. They asked me to come and write Thunderbolts over there, take over a run that was in progress. So I did that. And then from then on, it was just, you don't, when you have you guys know, right? When you have a gig in your teeth, you don't let it go, right? You work really, really hard to make sure that the impression you leave on the fans and the editorial team and your co-creators, everybody needs to think that you're a good worker who does great work, who has talent, and is cool and fun to work with. And then if you do that, you're going to get more gigs.
And then you can turn into a prick.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You hold back all the prickish sensibilities, and then when you get an A.
We're total pricks, everybody, for sure. But we've earned it.
But I mean, you were doing creator work, like when you were starting out. I mean, that's kind of how you break in as a writer. But was the goal to do Marvel DC stuff? Like, was that like
the goal was not to be a lawyer anymore, really? And and unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever you want to say, like lawyers, I had like a young family, and like all of that stuff was happening. And I had to replace the lawyer income with comics income, which as you guys know, like it's almost impossible to make $1 as a comics creator, much less trying to replace like I had my own law practice. And so trying to do it, it was like either it's going to really work or I'm just not going to do it. Right. I'm not going to give up a law practice for this. So yes, my goal was Marvel and DC. My goal was, the brass ring and all the success I could get, because it's become much more nuanced now, but I was like just desperate to get out of being a lawyer. And there was really only one way to do that. That was responsible with the other obligations I had with my family and stuff.
Well, I mean, it was different for me and Will because we had nothing to lose in a lot of ways. Like, Well, no, I remember it was Will had said to me, it was like, going to America, we were both single. We were both working on like smaller US books. Will was doing Farscape and I was doing 28 Days Later. So there really wasn't anything. What harm will it do to go over for a little while and see what we can, it's a whole different thing to have like an established career that you're, walking away from.
Yeah. Which, I didn't walk away from it. It was like I scaled down the law while I scaled up the comics, because since I had my own practice, I could just take fewer clients. Or I could, turn down work from clients who wanted me to do stuff. And so the time when I actually closed the law firm, I was doing primarily immigration work with you guys, which you guys both know. And it was right at the end of 2016, which was when I had gotten my exclusive renewed at Marvel for another 2 years. And based on what had happened in the first 2 years of my exclusive at Marvel, I was confident that I would be able to, things would work out. And if I also knew that it was a bunch of things, right? Because at that point I was so busy with work at Marvel and still DC at the time that like it was very difficult to be a responsible lawyer, because if you make a mistake in immigration, you can ruin somebody's life, as we are seeing in the news all the time these days. And I didn't want to make a mistake like that, and I wanted to just really try it to see what could happen if I really put everything I had into the writing career. So I closed the firm, stopped taking new business around the second half of 2016. And then there was a presidential election then that had a drastic effect on the immigration landscape, which I don't know that rarely happens with America, but every once in a while a president gets elected that has a drastic effect on the immigration law landscape. So I decided to stay being an immigration lawyer for another 8 months or so, just to kind of help folks who were calling me desperate questions about what the hell do I do next. So I didn't really formally stop until probably mid 2017, but I was well on my way out the door.
But like at that stage, was it like a conscious decision of like, okay, I'm definitely going to stop, or did you realize, oh, I'm doing it now, or did it just kind of slowly happen and then you realize it afterwards?
No, I don't know. I mean, Will knows because he's seen the spreadsheets and all that stuff, but I'm a pretty meticulous, focused guy. Like I have dates and times and like things figured out and like how it's going to work and how I'm going to do it. So I had a real if I do this, what will this mean? What are my other income streams going to be? How can I do it? How can I make it work down to the nickel? And there was a case, I literally cannot go into details, but there was one where I almost screwed something up. And I caught it at not the last, but much later in the process than I should have caught the error. And I was like, holy shit, I cannot keep doing this. This is something terrible will happen. And it's totally irresponsible for me, for the clients who rely on me. I just can't do it. And so it's either I choose law or I choose writing, and I chose writing. And that's why we're talking this very day.
And for you, did you feel that you were with me when I got an email from Marvel? For me, it was when that happened, that was I've made it. Even though I've been doing it, you and I've been doing it for a year or so.
Yeah, it was a great moment. I still remember it well.
Weren't drunk at all. But what was it? Was there a moment for you where you're like, I did it? I'm doing the thing I've always wanted to do.
Sometimes I still pinch myself. Certainly, because we would have spent if you want to know my backstory and you're on this podcast, just listen to Dec's one and just replace different titles, because it was the exact same publishers, pretty much within. Some of them were in weeks of each other. Some of them were in a few months of each other. It was mad. So it was, Atomic Diner, Classical Comics, Boom Studios, and Marvel, essentially.
I forgot you did the Classical Comics one as well.
Yeah, Richard III.
Oh, that's right.
So the whole ways up, it was the same thing. Yeah. Each one always felt along. For the two of us, we definitely had this kind of a dream, like to break into Marvel or DC. And for some reason, for both of us, we started narrowing down and getting closer to Marvel. But you still, it's even looking back now, it was a short time, but back then it felt like a long time, because you think about it every day.
But we were also lucky that we kind of had each other. Like, it was very rare we'd be stuck in a situation on our own. Like you actually, you had a mate around. So worst case scenario, you're just hanging out with your mate anyway.
And luckily neither got left behind as well. Like, it was the same the whole ways along, all the ways up. Look, definitely when CB essentially hired me for the job was a huge moment. I had to do one sample page for the project because they weren't just putting me on like a random fill-in. They were wanting to give me a full series, which was mad thinking about it back then. But and I had to do that sample page and travel to a convention in Belfast the next day. So to do it, I had to stay up all night, do the page, get a train to Dublin, hop off to a different train up to Belfast. And when you cross the border into Belfast back then, you'd lose internet on your phone because it was a different service, whatever, going into Northern Ireland. Got to my hotel, ran into the hotel, plugged my laptop with the internet cord into the laptop. Again, old-fashioned way of doing it. That wasn't working. Had to get a replacement call. And there literally was an email waiting for me to say that, yep, it's good. The job is there for you. So it wasn't as much fun as when you got it, when the two of us were to go celebrating. I was
in a hotel room at the time.
Yeah, I was in a hotel room by myself up in Belfast, but I still jumped around the room all excited. So
those moments are so... they're awesome, right? Whatever the thing is, like we've had some Will and
big time.
We've all it's one of the really cool things about comics is that there's like a handful of us. There just aren't that many of us, and each like generation, right? We're all in the same class, you could call it. Like our track that we were on put us in the business at the same time. Like we all came up together basically, And you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were both real trailblazers as far as Irish comic artists, right? There wasn't much happening in that zone. Like since you guys have come up, Irish comic art has become more of a thing, right?
I always say that I reckon there was lots of versions of us 20 years before us, but we could never make it the way across because of things like the Miller World boards and stuff like that. There wasn't place for them to get feedback. There weren't places for them to present their work, and you couldn't even figure out how to go to a convention. We were able to piece that together from those boards and make those last little connections that they might not have had.
Yeah, we were on the cusp of that internet age that wasn't quite there before, but there were a couple of guys like Dermot Power and Killian Plunkett who did Unknown Soldier with Garth Ennis and some alien stuff that's really well known. But the concept movie world just like sucked them up. So they were once they were in, they were gone. Like I think we were the first to kind of get in and stick around.
Great. But you've also
for better or worse.
I think you, not to puff you up too much, but I think my understanding, and I could be wrong, is that you both have made a real focus on trying to bring up other artists behind you and bring them along and introduce them, and writers too, like just sort of help the Irish comics community become a thing that it maybe wasn't to the same degree before. If I'm wrong, hey, whatever, but I don't think I am. And I think
we crushed them. You haven't seen the ones we've buried along the way. No, it's actually look.
Yeah, CB Cebulski was over at a show here in Dublin, or nearby in Dublin, a couple of weeks ago, and he said, I was on a panel with him, and he said something similar actually in that, which is nice to hear that like the Irish tend to support each other and try to help each other out, whereas other countries aren't necessarily as helpful, which is nice. I mean, you want to help people out, but of course, it's at the end of the day, it's always down to that person to make the most of whatever opportunities, But I do remember when I was starting out being very, very shy, and wasn't really sure what to do. But I kind of, like going to the UK on my own the first time, or going to the US my first time with Will. It's like, came all this way, you got to do there's no point coming all this way and doing nothing. You got to, and plus again, in most cases, like by the time I was going to the States with Will, like we were egging each other on too, which I think helped.
That's great.
But so you both had like long careers at Marvel. What you started shifting more toward creator-owned stuff, Charles? Did you take a break in creator-owned while you were building a name at Marvel, and then move over? Do you think? Or?
I did. I had a long-running series called Letter 44 that was with Oni Press that ran through kind of in the background while I was building my first several years of career at Marvel. But then I didn't really jump back into creator-owned in a big way until I did a book called Curse Words with another frequent collaborator of mine who you guys both know, named Ryan Brown, who lives in Chicago. And so from then on, I've tried to always have at least some creator-owned thing going, because I think it's really important for creators in this business, which has so much work for hire in it. And I think anybody listening to a comics focused podcast probably knows what work for hire means at this point, but basically it's when you work on the characters you don't own. You work on Spider-Man, you work on Star Wars, you work on whatever, which means you get paid the rate you get paid. But if a character you make up goes and becomes a big feature of like a big TV show that's airing on Disney Plus right now, for example, you don't get
right now.
You don't get to participate in that in the same way that you would if you had owned that character from the beginning. And so for me, and I think part of this is the legal background and like understanding copyright and understanding IP and all of that, it was very important to me to always be creating things on my own. I also just love the freedom of doing it. So there were times when I didn't have a lot going on creator-owned. I certainly have much more going on creator-owned now than I ever have before, but I was never I don't know that I was ever totally out of it. I think pretty much right when I finished Letter 44 is when I started ramping up with Curse Words. But it's its own, you guys know, like you got, we/you guys, whatever, we're all doing a lot of creator-owned stuff now. And that environment, getting products to market, marketing them, like, running your own lettering shop, like all the things that you have to do when you're making your own book it's a totally different set of muscles. It's very, very rewarding when a creator-owned book hits, as you guys also both know. Like it feels like nothing else when something you've made up gets like explodes. It feels amazing. But it's so much work, and you don't have the guarantees of, you're writing a Wolverine story or you're writing a Spider-Man story where everybody knows what it is. And, you were always going to get some level of audience just to see what the hell Wolverine's up to. When you make your own new thing, it's a gamble, but when it pays off, man, there's nothing like it.
And what was it for you? Because like the Hell to Pay was your first like creator-owned image book. And you'd been at Marvel 5, 6, 7 years probably at that stage.
Oh God,
what was it?
Way longer, 10 or 11.
Probably longer, yeah, probably 10 was it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So 10 years, solid work for hire. I mean, I know you're doing other stuff, but as regards like comics, what was it that made it like this is the project that's worth the gamble?
Well, I bet I know what he's going to say if he knows what he's doing.
No, genuinely.
I'm just teeing him up for you guys.
So obviously I worked with Charles on The Rise of Kylo Ren, which was a very, very enjoyable experience. And we had talked beforehand about doing a creator-owned a couple of years before that. And it didn't work because I was that was back when I was doing 14 or 15 issues a year for Marvel, which was just mad, like the amount of stuff I was going through and doing. But finally we got to work together at Marvel on The Rise of Kylo Ren. It was such a big book. It was such a really cool project to be involved in. Everyone that read it seemed to absolutely love it. But what I loved was the creative process of doing it and how we were doing it and how we were working together to create new things, to work on costumes, to work on Ren and build that helmet, which is sitting over there in my studio now, which was like a really enjoyable process. So like when you're working with someone who we both knew each other before we worked together or worked for Marvel, and then it worked so well on The Rise of Kylo Ren, it was obvious to do more work with Charles. And we've got to create some really, really fun Star Wars stories. So the idea was to create a universe of our own. And Charles is obviously a bit of a pro at that. So if I'm going to pick anyone to get to do it with, it was him. But there was another thing, which was lovely timing for it, in that this was right in the middle of the pandemic. And a lot of things slowed down, and it's out now. It's the Rise of Skywalker is here after 5 years. But I was working on that book when that got paused. And And I think that Charles kind of knew that was being paused, and it was such an uncertain time and everyone didn't know what was going on. So it was very good of Charles to be like, hey, look, I got you. Let's do our creator own now together, which was awesome. So for many, many reasons, there was no way I wasn't going to do it. And then it just so happens that it's this big, giant universe that's going really, really well. So
I was going to say, like, I mean, from an artist's point of view, if you're going to do something creator owned, you want it to be the most, least risky prospect possible. Like, and Charles clearly has massive success in comics. You're not going to do terribly. You'll do okay, which is great, but it's not just that you did like a creator own thing. It's like you this big, massive, multi-story thing. Like, I mean, especially in the context of like putting it out around the pandemic, like what made you want to take that kind of? It's a big roll of the dice, is what I'm saying. Even though you weren't going to be bankrupt from it, but like doing a multi like because like how many books is this planned to be?
When all said and done, it'll be 7. So
7, like, I mean. Why? Like, what made you think? Like, was it that look, everything's pandemic is the way it is. Now is the time to make a big swing. What for you, Charles? What made it be now's the time to do it?
I mean, first of all, I think that there is like I know comic fans. You know comic fans. We all know comic fans. We know what comic fans are like, and one of the reasons we know that is because they're us, right? We are comic fans. And so for me, one of the things that I always really enjoy is the idea, and whether it's in novels or comics, whatever, is the idea of like an ongoing series with new installments and like a world that's being built, and you anticipate it, like, oh, the new one's out. Oh my God, the new one's out. And my feeling was that building a world from zero and messaging from the start that this is what we're doing. It's these interconnected stories that are all part of the same thing. You can read them in any order, and they build up to a larger story, new characters in each one, but some cameos, some old ones. Like, it's kind of like the MCU, the early MCU model, where like, you have a Captain America movie, an Iron Man movie, and then they would build up to the Avengers and so on. So that's basically what the Shrouded College is within sort of a horror adventure framework. It's like horror Mission Impossible stuff. It's very, very cool. And my bet basically was that it was something that would build over time and was something that we would be able to have a new number one every 9 months or whatever it ends up being, and that was a chance for new people to jump on and always message the new number one. Oh, we got the new one starting. You don't have to have read the old ones to read this one. Just jump on at any point. And my hope and my belief is that when you read one, because every Shrouded College, everything, single issue to a trade is messages the whole thing. They all are designed to say there's more of this. If you like this, go get the other one. It's very easy. Here are the other stories. Will did this brilliant graphic that really illustrates very beautifully how it all like links in, and like we're revealing pieces of it as we go. It's very fun. It's like the dream project you've always kind of wanted to do when you were 12, I think. Did I know that it would work for sure? No. A large part of it was knowing that we needed to sort of be willing to weather the first 3 or maybe even 4 of these being out, because that's when people look at a series and say, oh, there's a lot of this. I want to see what this is. And so
we're not nervous that because you did signal from the start, which I think is great. People know what they're getting in for, which is oftentimes isn't what happens. They're told after they're 3 issues in. But like, were you not worried? It's like you'd be like, we've had this whole world planned, and then the first book wouldn't go well, and then you're like, oh, pie on my face. I'd be terrified of that.
I don't know. I don't think
we ever even thought that once, I'll be honest with you, in the way. Really? I think we were more excited by the ambition of it, Yeah. Like Charles had just come off of essentially being a big pillar of the High Republic, which was a very ambitious thing in the whole world of Star Wars, and a big way of doing something very, very new, in a very, very different way, in a different way of building out that universe, and there was a commitment to that at the start as well, So I think we were excited and more. And like, I don't think there was any way we were going to back down from any kind of a challenge that was associated with it then. Oh.
That's right. I mean, I think the thing that was underlying everything you just said is like, I don't make creative decisions based on the thought of failure, right? It's always, oh, well, this is going to work and I can't wait for it to work. And it's going to be so exciting when it does. And I think that attitude affects a lot of the way that when you talk about it, when you promote it, the way the audience perceives it. I don't know. Like I never worry about it not working. I just try to do my best to make sure that it does.
Oh, fair enough. I do operate on fear, so I guess that's what I'm asking. So how is it structured now? Because you did the first series, Hell to Pay, and then the second one with Raphael.
Alberto Albuquerque.
Albuquerque. What was the one called?
Bloody Dozen.
Bloody Dozen. And now it's The Cold Witch. So this will be, when this one's done, you'll be halfway through the whole concept?
Like basically the way that it works is there are 6 series that are like, Iron Man, Captain America, whatever. And then there's a 7th one that's basically the Avengers, where all of the little, like,
I see, right.
The agents and the missions and all that stuff come together to make one big story at the end. So Will, do you want to, I feel like I've just been going on and on. Do you want to speak a little bit to how it all fits together and how it all works?
Sure. So you've pretty much summed it up. So it is those 6 volumes that we're all planning out. They'll all work individually. And one of the nice things that we got to do at the very, very start is we kind of made a Bible that was for ourselves and for, the TV movie side of it. If anyone was interested in peeking behind the curtain, is plotting out those universes, what those titles are. I've sent Charles covers for book 5 probably like a year and a half ago, and even pages and stuff from that. And it's nice the way we can kind of dip into those other worlds. We want them all to feel very, very unique, and they almost they're different types of horror stories. So if Hell to Pay is your first one, and your second one is The Bloody Dozen, which is your kind of your space vampires one, compared to the first one, which is the story that's the coins, the hell coins that come up from hell, and it's a family couple essentially trying to navigate their connection to each other while they're trying to solve this chapter of the Shrouded College. This third one then will feel totally different as well. This third one, as you described it, Charles, is John Wick based in the snow, which is
with zombies, right?
With zombies. Yes. Yeah. I have a page full of them in front of me right now.
Good. Draw more, add more. We need
no problem. It's actually in one of those double page things.
I love those. I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
But what's also nice is that when you do build stories like that, and even though they are, they do have different, themes within them, you still get to make them feel like they're part of the same universe with the kind of the shot choices and the page layouts and the stuff that you do. So, like, for example, the double page spread that I'm doing right now, which happens in the last issue of The Cold Witch, kind of has a very, very similar layout to a double page spread that's in issue 1 of Hell to Pay. And it's almost like there's a directorial familiarity around them visually in ways that kind of links back in between them. I used to do this in Star Wars a lot as well. If you would have, a young Han Solo in one book and Kylo Ren in the other one, there's like choosing similar kind of storytelling beats with them is like these nice little external links. I think there's more opportunities to do that with this, which is quite cool. But the thing that I'm definitely looking forward to the most as this kind of creative project comes together is having all of those books beside each other, all designed nicely with the spines lined up really, really nicely, and each story being its own individual one. And getting to the point then when I get to read the script of the final one, which will have been built towards something in comics that hasn't kind of been done before. So that's kind of a thing that I'm excited for as well.
And I would say, I don't know if this is by design, but I think the advantage of doing something like this is that if you pitch an ongoing series, you don't know if it's going to last. Let's say you're talking about 6-7 volumes of 5 issues. So that's 30 something issues. Not many issues go that long. Like I know your book, Charles, with Scott,
Undiscovered Country.
That's good. Yeah, that's got a good few. That's got a good
one.
Yeah,
we're doing working on issue 31. Camo's drawing issue 31 right now.
I mean, that's amazing, but it's fairly rare. It doesn't happen a lot.
100%.
So it's a lot. It's a lot to jump in and try have a book that goes that long. You don't know if it'll happen. until you're a few issues in. So that's a bit of it. I'm speaking from the point of view of somebody who'd like put together a creator own, so I can see the concern there. But I also think like from an artistic point of view too, if every volume is so different, then by the time you finish issue 5, you're kind of done with it. And to do a new volume with this a whole other area, you're actually kind of jazzed to do something completely different. Whereas I could see you can get quite tired if you're the one artist.
It definitely freshens it up.
I think it gives you a little spin to kind of go, oh, cool, this will be something totally fun. But yet you're also capitalizing on everything you've already invested in before. Like, I think it's a good way to like keep the audience surprised and keep artistically kind of jazzed. It's I think it's a great format. It would be great to see how it works. I mean, like I said, you're halfway through it now, so it's clearly working for you. But were any of those practical aspects in your mind coming into it, or am I jumping the gun there?
It's a good question.
No, I absolutely think so. The idea that every story has its own flavor and is a potential entry point for a new audience, right? So if you are somebody who likes like space vampires, which is what the second story is about, it's about vampires who have been stuck in a prison orbiting the sun for decades, and a mission of astronauts goes up to try and break them out, which is very dangerous on many different levels. And it's a real like. My template for all of these is like those sort of late 90s, early 2000s, like B science fiction movies and horror movies so like Leviathan or Deep Rising, or there's tons of them, Event Horizon, like movies that maybe didn't have the greatest budget, but like were really big in the imagination and would usually have one or two shots that you're like, oh my God, that's super cool. And then the rest is kind of like people talking in a blank room or whatever they could get away with. So obviously with comics, you can do anything you want. So we don't have to worry about the budgetary restrictions, but like the spirit of them, the like anything can happen and nobody's safe. And like, they can be weird. They can be a little sexy. They can be bloody. They can be all of these things in a way that feels very cool. Like they're R-rated books, they're not X-rated, but I don't think they're PG-13 either. Like these are definitely R, which is, I guess, you guys, I don't know what your equivalent ratings are in Ireland, but you guys lived here for a while. You know what all that stuff means. And so, but they're all the flavor of each is different. Like the first one is about, it's like a treasure hunt for cursed coins across the world that demons have seeded all over the world. These golden coins that let you summon the devil. The second one is the space vampire thing. The third one is the zombie action revenge thing set in Siberia. And so the audience for all of those, I mean, I'm the audience for all three of those, but there are people who might be like, I don't care too much about space vampires or demons, but I love zombies in the cold. And so then they'll pick up Cold Witch and be like, holy cow, this is so good. I want to know what the world is like, because each one of them does world building in a very, in a pretty robust way. You get real big chunks of what it's all about in each one. So I feel like readers, I don't know, we're just trying this and it's working. I mean, a big component of it that's been helpful is the big TV deal we were able to sign for early on, because that's helped sort of assuage any fears of financial stuff, which has been great. But I don't know. I think people, like, I hear more and more and more at shows and online, people are like, man, that Shrouded College thing is super cool. Like, people are psyched for Cold Witch. So I'm jazzed.
This I guess more of a personal interest, but like when you get to announce the big TV thing, like, does that affect the book that much? Do you think? Like, as in the excitement around it, does it affect sales? Does it affect?
It does. It certainly helped the speculators get interested, although they've gotten a little bit more wise in the last few years, where they're focused more on like the announcement of the show going into production as opposed to the show being bought. But we have had great news on this all through. Like, we just had some, I don't know, when did that last bit of good news, like in the fall, right? We got some good news about it.
Yeah, recently enough. Yeah. 3 months ago, actually.
About that. And the thing that's wild is that all this stuff is happening during a historically terrible time for Hollywood. And so our project moving forward along these lines and getting through various gates and jumping over various hurdles has been really, really gratifying, and really has means we're going to be able to, I mean, we would anyway, but like this makes it much easier for us to say, yeah, we'll go through and do the whole thing and do the whole story, and which is just awesome.
And like, what do you like when you're looking at the whole plan, the, like, the different books that like you're planning, do you just go, I'll do that one, Like, which are the ones
Well,
that one? No, I don't want that one.
There's certainly like every artist has things that they prefer to draw over the other. But I do like what I'm actually finding is happening is I'm getting overly attached to some of the characters that might start popping up in different books, in a ways that I wasn't necessarily sure that I would have. And starting to really like drawing those characters more. So like it's up for a debate between myself and Charles whether I'll draw all of the rest of them or whether we bring like another artist back in for one of them. We're not 100% sure. We know I'm drawing this one and the next one, and then there's another one that I'm definitely drawing. I'm definitely drawing the end, and we can kind of pick and choose, but it wouldn't be out of. I think it would be like, I think we all know our own strengths and weaknesses as artists as well, and like I thought Alberto did such an awesome job on the Bloody Dozen and brought in this awesome energy that I know I wouldn't have done. So it's really, I'm delighted that he drew that, and maybe there'll be one that will be like that. Maybe not. We're not 100% sure because we're planning out drawing 2 books at a time at the moment. Charles, is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah.
We even are like, and then we still have the flexibility then to be like, what we've planned at book 5, that maybe we'll move that back to book 6 just the way, because your story evolves a little bit as you go on. And we're also, we're doing even more, like we're peppering in, like we brought out a little extra issue on backstory of the Shrouded College at New York Comic Con. And, that kind of influences us to possibly do another one. And so that tapestry can kind of change a little bit as it goes on. That said, the plan and the pillars are all going to be there. And there has been times, one of the reasons why I really want to be involved in this as well is that, like, I've often watched long form TV shows that bluffed their way through saying they had all this stuff planned at the start or whatever. So it's nice to be involved in something where we clearly laid out all of these pillars at the start and we're able to kind of build it around that, because all that takes is just that little bit of extra work at the start, but it certainly stands by as you go through something as big as this.
I know, man. I found myself more these days.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Charles, go. No, you go on.
I was just saying, like, for Will, like, but when you get scripts, like, you know the big, but like the moments you don't know. And so I think that's like, you get a script, you're like, all right, I don't know what the hell he did this time.
And that's also why I'm really looking forward to the 7th one, because I know nothing about the 7th one. I know what it's all building to, but I don't know how it's going to resolve. So that's the moment when I'll really switch over to being a fan, kind of reading and taking it in as well, So I know what we're hitting to get there, but I don't know how it's going to end, So and it just has to be this Avengers level epic event, Charles. No pressure.
No problem.
Yeah, fine. No, I was just going to say, I found, like, from writing more in the last few years, like, so much of it is bluffing. I found, because there's deadlines for this and deadlines for that, and it's like, I'll figure that out later, and like, so I have a lot more sympathy for projects to fall apart.
We very specifically started working on this without a major time period to bring it out when we started kind of putting it together, and both of us were getting pulled back in to do different Marvel projects and stuff like that as well, which allowed us to have more time to kind of to decide what we were doing. So we kind of, as we worked on essentially the 1st and the 2nd issue was when we built all of that world out and stuff as well. So I think that the very fact that we were just so busy with other stuff kind of forced our hand as well to spend more time developing the world in a kind of a good way.
Well, I find that, like, you can, I mean, maybe you agree or disagree with this, but like, you can plan X amount, but like, but in the making of the thing, it'll find its own way sometimes.
The characters come to life, and they write themselves, I'd imagine. So
yeah, absolutely, they do. Yeah, I mean, we introduced this couple in the first book, Hell to Pay, Sebastian and Maya Stone. And they're a married couple, which was interesting to, like, you don't see that often. So that was interesting to write about, and make them action heroes because the stakes are different. A bit of Mr. and Mrs. Smith or something like that, meets Hellraiser, I guess. But we both really like them, and the TV people really like them. And so it's like, well, I mean, we should make sure that they show up in other things, even if they're not the central role. We just put them in other things. They appear in other ways. And the main sort of mission statement of the books is every book introduces a new major element of the teams, right? Just again, like Captain America, Iron Man, whatever, like you meet a new member of the Shrouded College sort of agent lineup. And they undergo some incredibly difficult trial to with the powers that the Shrouded College gives them, that they have to succeed or they're essentially damned. And so you meet a new one every time, but now it's like, I'm really like the folks in Bloody Dozen. I'd love to see how Will would draw them. Like it will be neat to start mixing and matching now that we're building up this world. And I think the fans will like that too. I think that's part of why you read these big interconnected stories like this.
Do you ever worry that the book might kind of buckle under the pressure of everything you're building? That you could you're creating so much big stuff that then you're kind of, you've trapped yourself into one epic. I mean, it's something that kind of gets to me sometimes when I'm trying to plan stuff out. I never worry about
anything, Declan. I just don't. I just
all right.
do it. I say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it. And that's it. I don't think about the places it might go wrong. I don't think about the audience. I don't think about the difficulties. I just get going. And I don't know, maybe it's foolish. Maybe it's not realistic. Maybe it's a little, I've got blinders on, but that's how I've always approached this stuff. If I hadn't, I'd still be a lawyer,
True. Well, it seems to be working for you. But Will, did you have any kind of is doing this book just like doing the Kylo Ren book with Charles? You're working with the same person, but did you find the process of not having an editor in the same way, or you've done the job, so in a way nothing changes at all, but did it feel different for you at all, or did you find any kind of challenge?
It definitely felt very similar. Just the way Charles and I were working on Kylo Ren, we kind of just basically would be on WhatsApp chatting together, sending back and forth costume designs before they would have been sent off to Marvel and Lucasfilm for approval. Obviously that part of it's gone, but that's the last 10%. So it's the 90% of it is all exactly the same. And yeah, of course we still get to design the characters together and kind of work on them together, this particular series. There was obviously way more design in Hell to Pay because it was the complete start of the world and every single character was brand new, so we got to do tons and tons of that. And that, honestly, it's that kind of collaboration, that part of it is the bit that I actually enjoy the most out of the whole thing, is when you have the very, very seeds of it, and you're designing the costumes, you're designing the outfits, and it really is the two of us going through picking the things that we like, picking the things that we don't like, and it's worked so far. There's a page that I've left it as the last page to do, double page spread at the end of Cold Witch, which is going to really need the two of us to come together to make sure it looks right, because it's going to give a real glimpse into the rest of the world, probably more like we've ever done.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
So and we've drawn there's going to be characters in this that we planned and drew years ago, but it's one thing doing those sketches privately for ourselves or for the TV people or all this kind of stuff. It's different when we're setting it in stone in the comics. We'll probably re-examine all of those and make sure it all looks right. And that's why I literally have every other page pretty much done on the last thing, but I haven't touched this one because it's gonna need that, and it's gonna need to look good, because it's almost like I'm trying to think what way you described it in the script, Charles, but it really is that moment in the story when the whole wide world is kind of revealed of what this whole thing. So it's really, really important to get it right.
Mm-hmm. And this would be for both of you, but probably more so Charles, but has doing something that you make yourself and create yourself, tell yourself, it makes it money, you're making a living off it, has it changed how you've looked at work for hire stuff? It would be different with Will, but Charles, you've done loads of it now at this stage. Does it make you more confident? Does it make you more I don't want to deal with this shit? Because I remember when I did I did Moon Knight, which was very creatively rewarding, and even though it was work for hire, I remember thinking I want to do more of this stuff. I don't want to do just a fill-in issue. I want to do stuff that getting that much control, letting go of it isn't really something that feels good. But you've done loads of work for hire since. But I'm curious if it's changed your approach.
I'm fortunate in part that I have been working almost all of my work for hire work for the last maybe 7 or 8 years has been almost entirely Star Wars. And while you would think that Star Wars comics and novels or whatever would be very tightly controlled, and they are, I have been extremely fortunate because I've written more Star Wars comics than I think at this point than anyone else ever has ever, which is a dubious distinction, but it is one that I have. And I've been working with the same people internally at Lucasfilm, pretty much the primary people for that entire length of time. So, I know them really well. Like we've had drinks together. We've like hung out I know them really well. They know me really well. And so there's a level, it's a couple of things, right? So I know what I can get away with, so to speak. I know when I'm pushing a boundary. And when I do that, I can explain to them and say, hey, so-and-so, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. This is why I think it would work. They don't always say yes, but a lot of times these days, it's like, if you think you've got the wind behind you, give it a shot. Let's see. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that is very, so for me, it's not like, it's a weird mix, it feels extremely collaborative, and it feels like the ideas are pretty much coming from me and the artist. It's not a top-down environment. It's a collaborative thing. I just had out today the first issue of a Daredevil thing that I'm doing with Steve McNiven, the wonderful artist Steve McNiven, called Cold Day in Hell, that we've been working on for 5 years, like intensely.
Did that come out today, did it?
Yeah, number one's out today.
Awesome.
So you gotta grab it if you guys get to the shop. It's really good. Or I'll just send you the PDF if you want. But
no, definitely gonna pick that up.
But it's really great. I'm really proud of it. But again, that's something that it was me and Steve and the editor Nick Lowe for all that time. It's just different. The kind of work for hire I've been doing, I've been extremely fortunate that there has been very little of the hey, this is what we're doing, do it this way, and I'm just like a cog in the machine. I realize this is a very privileged place to be as a work for hire comics creator, but a lot of the stuff I've been able to do, I've really been able to put my own stamp on, craft the way that I want to do it. And for me, it's been really rewarding. That said, there's nothing like creating your own universe. There's nothing like creating your own universe with somebody that you really vibe with creatively, like I do with Will, or the other folks I work with, like I do with you whenever we do stuff, Declan. It really feels great. There's nothing else like it. And when you can add financial success and critical success on top of that, it's the best of the best. If you could say, Charles, you can work on all of the Marvel and DC's biggest events for the rest of your career. You can write Batman for the rest of your career. That's what you'll do. Or you can have a string of successful creator-owned projects. There's zero question what I would choose. I would choose the creator-owned stuff.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I thought you could say Batman. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I find there's two things when I'm not sorry, actually, Will, I was wondering if you had the same thing. Like, did you go back to doing creator-owned work? You're like, I'm fucking Will Sliney. I know what I'm fucking doing.
Honestly, I've been in that Star Wars offers for a long time as well, and I do love doing that, and I do get to have it's a very lucky position to be able to do both, and I'm very lucky in that if I want a Star Wars book, it's usually there, and whenever we're ready for the next volume of the Shrouded College, that's there too, and then I get another, creator own side with the TV side of it and the cartoons and all of that kind of stuff, so I'm definitely filling up the boxes, both boxes that I really like. One is nostalgia and awesome being a part of these huge things like Star Wars or Spider-Man or whatever it is, and two, it's creating these worlds that all seem to be successful and going really, really well. If I was to I don't think I've ever put myself in a position where I have had to choose between the two. I think it's different as an artist when you just get to work on one property at a time. Like a writer, it's probably easier to balance the two, because you could have two Marvel books, you could have two kind of creator-owned books. Mm-hmm. I would be very sad if I had to pick between the two. I'll put it to you that way. me, I'm very, very positive about all the books I've always been a part of. So yeah, long may it continue.
Look, I found that, when we were starting out, my attitude was like, whatever you want, whenever you want it, and I'll be super nice about it, and whatever, how many late nights I need to do, I'll always do it. And, now I find like, I'm in an amazing position where like, it's just, if I wanted to do something, I can. And if I don't want to, I don't. And it's such the other side of things where it was when we were starting out. The worry if we're going to get another gig or. But I do think that like doing a creator-owned book does empower you in a way that nothing else does, because worst case scenario, you can just make your own thing and you'll be okay. I think it does something good for the brain.
Very funny. As you were just saying that you're holding up your arm with what I believe is a Moon Knight tattoo.
Yeah. Where's your old dog tattoo?
Well, it makes it even better. My other arm, I burnt cooking dinner yesterday. So either way, Success and absolute failure.
That thing about we get to do it as we do it, and they have faith in us, and we can say no to things, and we can push back on things. Like, we've earned that. None of us are in our first year of doing this. Like, we're all at least a decade in at this point, and I think quite a bit more. So that they're getting veteran, extremely experienced comic book creators, which is. There aren't that many of us, right? There aren't that many people who've been working at a professional level for the big two for over a decade, that aren't aged out, that aren't, haven't gone on to concept art, as you said. Like, we're valuable, and they know it, even if depends on how they want to treat us on a given day. But like, I think they understand the value of the experience. It's unique.
Yeah, actually, Charles, you said something to me one time that has really stuck with me, which was, I'm paraphrasing now. You probably said it better, but like. How many people get to do comics for a living, which is about this much, and how many get to do it at like Marvel or DC? It's more, less. How many more get to do it working creator owned, and all the more the way up the ladder you mentioned. You were saying we get to do all that. Like how there's levels of luck, and success that you get, and not everybody gets to do it. And the fact that the way you spelled it out for me made me really just kind of go, holy crap, I am so lucky to be in the position I'm in, and I'm not the only one. You're there, and there's loads of people who are, but it's I find it really good to kind of just remind myself how fortunate I've been over the years.
There aren't loads. I mean, we're talking what's the Everton? How many people are on that squad? Well, it's not very many, right? Like, it's it's like that level of numbers, right? Like a football team kind of thing. It's very, very, very few. It's not 100, who are in this position. It's significantly less. And that's amazing. Out of all the billions of people in the world and all the different ways to do this, we have these incredible careers that let us tell stories largely exactly how we want to do it in this beautiful way that audiences connect with. That I think about it all the time. I was just in in California. I was brought out to Galaxy's Edge to talk about Star Wars for a few days. Like, it's our lives are pretty great, you guys.
I've maybe two more big questions for you, but and we've got some in the chat. But I'll ask one and then I'll finish with another one. What was the one I was going to? Oh yeah, you both have big projects outside of making comics. Do you find it hard managing? Will, you've 17 TV shows, whatever it is, a new book, drawing on windows apparently is a new thing you do. I saw the other day. And Charles, between I know writers can do more, but it is still a lot that you're doing. Between, was it Carnage and Daredevil, work for hire wise, and you've
a million Star Wars books,
and I'm writing another Star Wars books. And then that's not even. I mean, it's too much. I think I'm on seven books right now, plus a novel that I'm promoting and finishing up. So,
do you find? But you do work outside as well, don't you? You consulted with She-Hulk and things like that. How much? That's all cool stuff. Do you ever find it bleeds too much into the day job, as it were?
I mean, we are.
Oh, you got spreadsheets. I forgot. You have spreadsheets. Well, I'm asking.
It's interesting because Will and I talk about this a lot. I think one of the reasons that we enjoy working together is because we also we click a lot in terms of the way our lives are, because we both are incredibly hard charging people who are taking every opportunity and wringing everything we can out of it, which can be really, it can be really challenging. But I'm going to let Will speak to it first, because I'm curious too. Like it seems like a lot has happened lately that has really been fantastic for you. But I also know it's exhausting.
You hit a very good point. I don't think we'd operate any other way. And for me, what that was just comics for a while. And what that meant is I was drawing 14 or 15 issues a year, which was crazy. For me, everything took a weird, wild turn with the pandemic. And like I never was planning on these TV shows. And now I have an animation company and a production company and all this kind of stuff, and there's definitely a balance. It's the beauty about things like the Shrouded College, is that we don't have to draw 12 issues every year. We can kind of take our time and do it right and do it the right way, and not put ourselves in a position where Charles is under immense pressure to write the book, or I'm under immense pressure to draw. And even as we were drawing this and making the issues, we were kind of like, most people would be like, oh, let's get this out as fast as we can. But we were like, no, let's wait, let's hold, let's get more of it together, to not end up in a situation where we're under pressure, because we both know that like something could come in, like there could be, a new series in Star Wars where they very much need Charles to be a part of that, in both comics or TV or anything. And the same, like I essentially get TV shows literally out of the blue, or they just kind of come in, and you can't kind of turn down these opportunities. So it's a balancing act. But I, as you say, Charles, I don't think there's any other way to do it than do it the best way you possibly can. So,
yeah, I mean, I think I recognize a real lack of balance in my life, I guess. I am extremely focused on creative things all the time. Some of them are for me, like I mentioned earlier in the thing, that I have this record that I did last year. I recorded a record. I've been a musician for a long, long time. And I made a very silly album that's very fun, based on that Curse Words comic that I did with Ryan Brown. And I did that in part because I missed music so much that I just wanted it back in my life. But I could have done it in a way where, like, I've got a halfway decent recording studio down in my like writing studio. And so I did record the entire record as like high-end demos. And I could have just released that and done it, here's this fun thing I did, guys, check it out, whatever. Instead, I went into a studio in Brooklyn run by like a guy I'm connected to, and like did it for real, like had, performed everything again, like layered it, mixed it perfectly, mastered it, like, and then pressed it onto vinyl. I didn't have to do all that stuff. It cost a bunch of dough. You could call it one of those, like, guy buying a Corvette kind of things. But for me, it also is like, if you're going to put any creative art into the world, any creative thing, you do it at the highest possible level you can within your means, within your ability, all of that. And that is the attitude that I bring to pretty much everything that I do. And so that spins out to like how I handle things at a convention, or how I do an interview, or how I approach building out a creator-owned project, or how I approach social media or promotion. Like everything I try to do to the best of my ability, which doesn't leave a lot of time for downtime. Like the only downtime I really give myself is when my family like forces me to have downtime. Like, let's all sit down, let's watch a movie, let's read a book. And lately, because my daughter Rosie, who you guys both know, she's now in college, and so when she comes home, it's a much more like, okay, this is time that I'm not going to let anything else get in the way of. So that's a break time. I go for runs a lot, and I go to the movies by myself a lot. But other than that, I'm always every single day I'm working. Is that good? I don't know. I think that attitude has brought me to where I am. I think it's what's brought Will to where he is too. At a certain point, either we'll slow down by choice, or we will be slowed down by circumstance. But for now, I love every minute of it. I don't think of it as like workaholic stuff. I just like again, to hit an earlier beat, like what a joy and a privilege to be able to bring creative stuff into the world and make a really good living from it. And just like feel like I'm bringing light into the world by these projects, like, yes, there are dark moments in the Shrouded College books, but like by and large, it's, people are happy when they encounter the work that all three of us do. It's making the world better, not making it worse. And in a time when so many people seem to be so focused on making the world worse, it makes me feel really good to put time into making it better. Even if it is all of the time I have, it's still worthwhile.
Yeah, not to make myself sound cool or anything, but I'm just like you guys. In that, like, I like making stuff is a compulsion. If I had time to myself, I would just. It happened once when I went on. I had a girlfriend who was like, "Can we please just go on a regular vacation?" I was like, "Sure." Made the time, and all I did was just come up with stuff that I want to do. Like, because I actually gave myself the time to think, I made more work for myself. Whereas if she just like left me alone, I was just been doing the normal work. But no, I describe it sometimes as a vocation more than a job, just because I'd be doing it anyway in some form. Yeah, I was hoping I'd just get some, knowledge or wisdom on how to silo these things off, but apparently not. It just comes in as like a tsunami.
Do it all the time. But it is that vocation or that calling, right? Because if you take a step back and again, to circle back to something we talked about earlier, like there are more people who play for Everton than do comics. Everton, right? Well, Everton then play for than do comics at the level we do comics, and so. Taking a step back and looking at it, it's bananas for us to have decided that this was the path we were going to want to walk and to continue to walk, considering how much easier it would be to do almost anything else, and for most people probably much more lucrative. I had a profession that would have sustained me through the entire rest of my life very comfortably. I would have been just fine, and instead, I'm telling stories about Luke Skywalker, which is it's awesome.
Well, I have a few questions here. I'll pop up here. Michael was saying, Charles, does your law background have comic colleagues coming to you with questions about contracts and copyright? Feels like info every creator coming up would need access to. I feel like that happened early on. Does it still happen?
Still happens all the time. Okay. I feel like I've spoken to both of you about legal issues from time to time. I get questions. A lot of the work I did was immigration, so I get questions about that still to this day. It comes up. The way that it tends to work is I have a voice of authority in matters of law. Like if they just happen to come up in conversation with creators talking about forming their LLC or whatever the thing is they need to do, I can usually say, well, guys, this is how it works, which is useful. So in terms of like actually consulting on people's like deals and stuff like that, I don't like to do it as much, in part because of it's not creative work. There's a reason I left all that behind, but I certainly like being a resource for creators who need it, because it's very expensive and it's very difficult. And sometimes you need a question that I can just answer off the top of my head. And it saves a lot of time and a lot of worry. So
and like nobody really knows this stuff. There's no book that explains it all. I mean, there are actual books, and that's true in this context,
Yeah, that's true of the law, the legal stuff, the business stuff, the way you're structuring things, and it like the more the more complicated it gets, oftentimes. And the companies will try and screw you every time, and like there's a lot to know. So I don't seek it out, but whenever it comes to me, I do try to still help.
I will say that when you are getting these nice big contracts from these TV companies or production companies about a show, it's very handy to have a co-creator like Charles on the same team as you, to be able to tell you, no, this is fine, Will, I understand what's going on here. You're like, all right, no problem. Thumbs up.
So much of that's, I mean, that's the downside of like especially with creator-owned stuff too, is you end up doing more of that kind of stuff. Yeah, and you're like, this isn't really what I want. Like sometimes the work for hire stuff is easier because you're just making the stuff and you don't have to worry about the like facilitation of making the stuff. But again, a lot of that is quite empowering too. But yeah, there's a lot of flying blind with a lot of this stuff. Michael's asking, are there recommended resources for that kind of legal stuff for copyright IP? I can't say I've ever heard of any.
Yes, I think just law school is what I would suggest. Just go to law school, and then you'll be in great shape.
That's cheap, right? Is it?
Yeah, it's very, very inexpensive to go to school in this country, for sure. You guys wouldn't know about that. The reality is that there's not a general set of resources that I'm aware of that I could recommend. I had a site or a series that I was doing on my blog back in the day called Agree to Agree, which was about the type of legal issues that comic creators often run into. So if you were to look up Charles Soule, agree to agree, put agree to agree in quotes, it probably would pull it up. I haven't tried that in a while, but I was going to do like 8 parts. And then the last part was going to have a sample agreement that people would use. And then, law is always the last thing on my list. And so I never finished the series. I think I did 7 parts. I think
Could that not get potentially dodgy if you're like, seen to be giving legal advice or
as an attorney, what I can tell you is that there are lots of ways you disclaimer that. You just put in language saying this is not legal advice. And I kept it very general, very useful, but general. Like these are the things you should watch out for. But I wasn't answering people's questions or anything like that. Like this is
I would say even that disclaimer is good, probably legal advice.
Yeah, anyway, whatever. Look for that, see if it's out there. Beyond that, I don't know. Like it's something that I think would be a great pro bono thing for me to do. Maybe if I ever like really, really, really hit it big and I can, not write as much, I don't know if I would do it, but I could consult with people and help them out. But
Michael also said, I just picked up Cold Day in Hell. Can't wait for work 10 so I can read
there
it.
you go. I think that book is
you have an obsession with Hell, Charles. Seem to be putting
it's funny. There's a lot because we have Hell to Pay. Then Lucky Devils is the new book I'm doing with Ryan Brown, and then Cold Day in Hell. I don't know. I wonder why. Like look out the window, guys. It's kind of rough out there.
Joe Mulvey is asking, is it true that both Will and Charles will be starring in the adaptation?
Lead roles.
Yes,
they can't decide which one of us is the female in the couple.
That's true.
It's Will. It's Will. Will's got the more nubile physique.
You guys are just too handsome. We're worried that it's going to be distracting. Like people won't be able to pay attention to the story because with you guys on the screen. But I'm sure they'll figure it out. Movie magic, CGI.
But I'll wrap it up because I don't want to take too much more of your time. But I was curious, what made for Charles, what made Will the person you wanted to reach out to for this whole thing? Because you have like Ryan. Yeah, right. Because why I asked this is because this is what I want to know with people who I worked with, but I don't have the balls to ask them because I wouldn't come across as needy. But I mean, like I know when I'm choosing someone to work with, it's like it could be just like that. I love their work, or just the experience of working with them was great. But like a lot of the stuff you do is quite different. Lucky Devils is nothing like Hell to Pay or. All the Letter 44. Was it the project or was it the experience? Because you had worked with Will loads on Star Wars. Is it like, because what happens for me is like, say if I work with somebody, I'm like, I really like working with them. I'd like to make something for them that we can work together. Was it like that, or was it like this experience is great, I want to keep it going? Like there's.
I think through the experience of working on Rise of Kylo Ren, I understood the way Will creates. But more than that, I had a real sense of Will as a guy who has his shit together from a professional standpoint. And I am at a point. Lie. Yeah, well, it's an illusion, right? It's what you present to the world. But
sorry, I always have to, by the way, I'm just putting more tea. I always sounds like I'm peeing on the
whatever
podcast.
You got to do, man. Yeah, whatever you got to do. I also.
No, it's drugs. It's drugs. I'm having a bong.
In honor of you guys, I made tea. So anyway, so Will seemed like somebody who would be able to handle the infrastructure requirements behind the scenes for being the other half of a big create around thing. Because when you do something like this, you're starting a business. You're literally starting a small business that hopefully can become a big business. And you want to do that with somebody that you can trust, that's somebody that you rely on, that you can rely on. And Will seemed like all of those things to me. He also creatively, there was his willingness to take an idea and workshop it until it worked, as opposed to the thing I draw was right, just take it, which is, some artists feel like that. There's always some give and take, but like, Will was almost uniquely willing to say, okay, let's, I would explain, one element or another, what I was going for, we would work together. And there was the back and forth of it. Oh, what if the leg was positioned this way? What if the hair was twisted that way? That could be really interesting because this could happen. Will, without exception, to this very day, even though he's, the king of Irish television, is still incredibly up for that kind of creative work. And, I hate asking for it. I hope I don't abuse that privilege with him, but it's one of the greatest things, because one of my big creative principles is that you don't have all your good ideas at the same time. Sometimes you cannot have idea B or C or D or K or M until you've seen all of the ideas before that don't work. And to have a creative partner who's willing to be like, yeah, let's work through those ideas until we get to the best one is extraordinary in comics. And it's one of my favorite things about working with Will, beyond just like how great an artist he is and how great a guy he is, and the Irish charm and all the other things he's got going for him.
Yeah, I'm gonna edit all this stuff out.
Exactly, of course, sure. But that, right? It's the let's get it right. The let's get it right is how I am with my stuff when I'm writing stories. Like, you work it till it's done, and that's how Will is too with his art. And I think
I know it's a less sexy answer, but like what you kind of said at the start, I think actually goes further than you think. Like, when Will and I were starting out, it was like, well, you've got to do your job because, you're given a deadline and a script and you have to do your job for when you're told. And it wasn't until like years later I realized how, some artists are complete disaster cases and can't string their lives together in any way, shape or form. I don't like saying it, but it's very much true. And even just knowing somebody who can just get the thing done when they said they would do it. Mm-hmm. It seems like such a low bar, but like it's actually pretty hard to find. And I'm not saying everyone's like this, but it's tough sometimes. People will lie to themselves. They're not lying to you necessarily, but they lie to themselves, thinking they can do X, Y, and Z, and don't. And then you're left with a book that's like late to the printers, and like it's not. It doesn't seem like the biggest deal in the world, but like just having your head screwed on goes a long way.
Yep, 100%.
Good. I said it all. Not that Will's head's screwed on. I'm not saying that. Just
no, you would never
want to receive any possible compliments. I have to rescind. But I'll let you off. I just if you could just tell me basically what is the new book? What is the Cold Witch?
Yeah.
If you're just giving a basic gist of it, it's the FOC is pretty soon. It's on the 17th, and it's out issue 1's out May 14th. But like, yeah, we didn't really actually get into what this new series is. So if you just gave me the basic gist of it.
Yep. So The Cold Witch is a 5-issue miniseries. It is the third installment of the Shrouded College universe that Will Sliney and I have been building for, several years at this point. It is self-contained, so you can read it even if you haven't read the other Shrouded College stories, but it's also really rewarding. If you have, you can also read this one and then go read the other ones afterward. It all works. It's all designed to sort of play in that way. Every story builds on the others. The story of the Cold Witch is about a woman who is an Italian lady named Violetta. She, as it turns out in the story, was a very accomplished sort of killer for hire whose great love of her life, the only person she's ever loved, was killed in a sort of a supernatural mishap. And so she has decided that come hell or high water, she is going to become powerful enough to take down the supernatural apparatus that took her love from her. And so she ends up going to Siberia to find a very powerful entity called the Cold Witch that she believes will give her the power she needs to destroy the thing that took her lover away. So it plays kind of like John Wick in Siberia with zombies and Russian folklore stuff. It's very intense. There are scenes that I know surprised Will when he saw them in the scripts, but they really land. He drew them beautifully, even though they're horrible. And I think it's really just a hard driving, really, really awesome self-contained book that I think people are going to really love.
And I assume you know what the next book is going to be, and you've plans for that when that's going to happen.
Yes. At this point, so the Cold Witch begins in May, runs for 5 issues, so May, June, July, August, September, and then that's right before New York Comic Con. So maybe, I don't know, Will and I have to talk about it. We are considering doing another one of those special one shots that we release only to the fans, which would be fun. We haven't decided if we're doing it yet, but it would be cool if we did. Will. And then we will probably bring the.
He's going to get a bunch of kids. Like he'll get a bunch of kids to do it now. He can just we'll use his TV show as a sweatshop.
Draw with Will. So we'll
draw for Will.
Yes,
I genuinely. This is a little aside. I had the Draw with Will book for sale for the first time at a convention. It's like €10, and I had parents coming up and going, "Oh, here's €10. This is my child get to draw with you for the next half hour or something." I was like, "I'm gonna have to clarify this."
Could have called it something else. So the trade for the Coldwood should be out in January. That's what we're planning right now, January, February, and then we will probably start the fourth book coming out in the spring. So look for it maybe March or April of 2026, which feels very far away, but believe me, is not.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thanks a million, guys. Charles, I'll actually be at C2E2. So,
Deck, you got to come to the big party we're doing on Saturday.
I don't know, busy.
All right,
I'll be there.
I'll put you on the list. Like, don't let me forget, for sure.
Okay,
Grand.
That's
great.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'd love to be there.
Just come over, Will. Zip over. Chicago's not that far.
But no, thanks for coming on, guys. I hope you didn't mind all the weird and intricacy questions. But that was great crack. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for it.
Oh, my pleasure. Sure. I'll see. Well, I've seen a lot of you recently, Will, so I won't see you, but I'll see you soon, Charles.
Fantastic. I can't wait. All right.
Thanks a
Great
million, guys.
to hang out, guys. Enjoy the rest of your late nights. I'll see you later. All right. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.